Good evening, everyone, and I'd like to welcome you and call to order our Lucan Biddulph Council meeting for Tuesday, January the 16th. I would like to acknowledge that I am an ally of Indigenous peoples. The township of Lucan Biddulph is located on the treaty and traditional territory and ancestral lands of many Indigenous peoples and is covered by several Upper Canada treaties. We recognize and celebrate the contributions of Indigenous communities in our shared cultural heritage. Lucan Biddulph is now home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples and communities, and we have a unique relationship with the land and its resources and continue to shape the history and economy of the township. We recognize the unique role of Indigenous communities that Indigenous communities have in the development of our communities. The contribution from Indigenous communities ensure the sharing of unique perspectives and traditional knowledge. The township recognizes the importance of consulting with our Indigenous neighbors and communities in an effort to build constructive, cooperative relationships through meaningful engagement to inform our decision-making and build partnerships. We acknowledge historic and ongoing injustices that Indigenous peoples endure in Canada, and we affirm our commitment to honoring Indigenous voices, nations, and cultures, and to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Last week, Ed Broadbent passed away. And Mr. Broadbent was the leader of the federal NDP from 1975 to 1989, and he was a member of parliament from 1968 to 1990. And then he returned, I don't know why, but anyways, in 2004 and served for 2 years. It has been said that Mr. Broadbent is the prime minister that Canada never had. I had the honor of meeting him a number of times, and I always thought that he was a poster of contrast. He was without a doubt a social democrat fighting the good fight for the working class. But at the same time, he carried himself with such grace and sophistication. He had a liking of expensive suits, and he liked pipes and good cigars. He was a scholar, a respected professor. He was progressive and purposeful, and he always proved to be a worthy and respectful and respected adversary for Prime Ministers Pierre Trudeau, John Turner, and Brian Mulroney. So why do I pay respect to him tonight, a federal politician who may or may not have known Lucan Biddulph? Because the way Mr. Broadbent conducted his business is a lesson for all of us. In his last address to the House of Commons, he reflected on the need of civility in the House of Commons. This speech, which you can find on CPAC, and I encourage you to look for it, focused on civility and respect. He noted that the work of the House of Commons should focus on the 75% that all parties have in common, and not to focus on what they differed on. He also spent time speaking on bringing the country together rather than dividing it. He is quoted as saying that the House of Commons should focus on returning to a civilized tone of debate that acknowledges human decency and dignity for all. He acknowledged that however we may differ, we are all human, and we all have the right to have our inner dignity respected, especially in this House of Commons in debate. So again, what does this mean for us? It is a reminder of how we should always be conducting ourselves. At the municipal level, we are, for the most part, especially in Lucan Biddulph, able to experience healthy, respectful dialogue. Just think what this could mean for our province and our country if all elected officials conducted themselves this way. As we enter conference season, we will have plenty of opportunity to meet with our colleagues that represent us at the provincial and federal levels. Let us show them how to debate, to discuss, to experience discourse, and yet still get things done. Thank you, Mr. Broadbent, for that reminder. So tonight we have a special recognition, and it is not often that a municipality has the honor of being able to recognize an employee who has served the township, the municipality, the community in which he lives for 45 years of service. And we have the opportunity to do that tonight. And of course, I know we're all excited to be able to spend a few minutes talking to our good friend, John Riddle. John, there's not many in this community who don't know you. You know, as much as we've grown, I think that even our newcomers have heard of you. You come with quite a legacy, and they certainly know what you mean to Lucan Biddulph. I was at County Council today, and I had the opportunity to talk to my colleagues from around the county and said, you know, let's keep this meeting short. I have a Lucan Biddulph Council meeting tonight. Oh, anything special happening? And I said, well, actually, there is. We're able to recognize John Riddle for his years of service. How many years is that? So 45. 45. John, you were the topic around the horseshoe and around lunch. Many of my colleagues, of course, know you by reputation, not only by reputation, but they do know you. And they couldn't believe that, you know, you live in the community, you serve it, and you have the respect that you do from everybody. Brian Ropp in particular, and of course, you know Brian, he shared a few memories with me of you, but wanted to pass along his congratulations to you. And as I say, it is not often that a municipality gets to be able to do this. I said to you before the meeting started, we just did this 5 years ago, and didn't know, you know, were we going to get another 5 years out of you? I know that you want to keep going. I know the knowledge that you have is passed down to our other employees, and nothing can replace you. Just know that you are appreciated not only from the elected official standpoint, but from the staffing component, but probably more importantly, from the residents of Lucan Biddulph. What you do makes a difference to them each and every day, when they get up and they turn on their taps, they flush their toilets, and this week when they try to get out of their driveways and get down the road. So thank you, John, for everything that you've done. I'm going to pass it over to Jeff to say a few words right now.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. John, I'd just like to say a couple of things. I'll keep it fairly short, but a few words come to mind: dependable, reliable, dedicated. Goes without saying. You don't have a career, or should I say a long career, without these qualities. Hands down, you are dependable, you are reliable, and you are dedicated. I could talk about these qualities, but there is one other quality that impresses me even more. And it's maybe something that maybe some people won't understand this unless you deal with the public all the time. And that's you're approachable. What that means, and by definition, it means that you're open, you're friendly, you're easy to talk to, you build strong relationships, and you can have connections with other people. Well, it's true. I've talked to people in the community, and I get this a lot. Oh, I know John. Send him over. Take a look at this. Oh, well, if John says that, that's okay then. And really, truly, it's your approachability that when you deal with people, we call it your superpower, and how you relate to people. John, you've built a relationship with this community over 45 years. And that's a connection with the community as a whole. So that's what impresses me, and thank you, John.
Okay. So I will ask you at this time, John, to come up. We have a small token of recognition for you. I understand that more is to come. I think it got held up in shipping, but if you can come up, Jeff, if you can come up too. And then we'll do it here, I think. And then did you want to say anything?
I want to say
Did you want to? Yeah,
break things just for me.
I know.
45 years. I went by in about 20 minutes, it seems. Just poof. Other than my family has grown considerably. And most half of them are here, and the other half had other commitments. One's working, and I got 2 granddaughters sitting there. My daughter, oldest daughter, and my son James, and my friend Karen. And yeah, so I could want any more, I'll be blubbering away. So anyway, I love working here. Love my comrades, and that's all I can say without choking up. All right, okay, thank you.
That's the other one. Yeah. Perfect. Congratulations. Thank you. Congratulations. And I think we're gonna get some pictures with the family. You guys want to come up?
I'm the youngest daughter. Here.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome to stay. You know. I'm sure you're having your own celebration. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. See you in 5. Thanks so much. Yeah. See you, Johnny.
See you tomorrow, John.
That's right. Okay. All right. Well, we don't need to go into closed session. We don't have a public meeting. We do have a delegation, and I would ask our colleagues from BM Ross to come up to the presentation table. Joining us from BM Ross to give us an update on the Lucan wastewater treatment plant expansion is Andrew Garland and Brock Spencer. Once you get settled, fellas, I will turn it over to you. So thank you. It's great. Thank you for coming in person, and it's great to see you. Happy New Year. And I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council for having us. For those of you that know me, I'm the Andrew Garland half of that duo, and my colleague Brock Spencer here, and we both work in the water and wastewater group at BM Ross. Yeah, thank you for having us. I think the Lucan wastewater treatment plant, any discussions that I would have had with you folks all started in the age of virtual meetings. So it's very nice to be here in person with you to speak about it. Don't know. Oh, here's a presentation. All right. You could advance to the next, or do I have the power to do that? No. Okay, I'll leave with you. So, yeah, we're talking about the wastewater treatment plant, the capacity, and looking to expand that capacity. Tonight we'll go over just some general details of the proposed expansion. progress to date, kind of from the starting point to where we are now, next steps and a schedule. But along the way, if there's anything on any slide that you have a question about or anything I've said you had a question about, please feel free to interrupt. I want to make sure that you folks are getting the information that's important to you as we go through. So the starting point with a project like this is to do the class environmental assessment, Schedule C assessment in support of the project. That really established the method of treatment that would be used moving forward and the capacity requirements that you had for the foreseeable future, the planning phase. So that was completed in December of 2022. And through all that work, it was established that it'd be in your best interest to plan for this capacity increase in stages. You know, you'd have the opportunity to really bite it off all at once and do a larger expansion, or phase it with a series of phases. And the advantage of doing that is really about trying to help align expenditures with different stages of growth. If you bite off really too much to begin with, there's a risk that you do more than you actually need in the future. And so that's been the basis for planning the expansion moving forward. Stage one of this process would take the capacity from where it's rated now at 1,700 cubic meters per day as an annual average flow up to 2,475. So about a 50% increase in capacity. Stage two to 2,700 cubic meters is about another 10%. And the limiting factor for stage two will really be how the plant actually performs following the initial expansion. And what I mean by that more specifically is the quality of the effluent coming out, the phosphorus concentration in particular. That'll play a big role in determining how high stage two can go. If it performs as expected, there's a possibility that 2,700 could actually be as high as 3,300 cubic meters per day, but we'll have to just see how things perform. It's probably a little bit difficult to make out all of the text on this aerial photo with some of the key things shown here. The next slide will get into a bit more detail. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to advance it, but in general, looking at everything here, kind of from the Chestnut sewage pumping station, also showing the lagoons and then the mechanical plant as well. Some of the key things involved in the system as a whole, not just the treatment plant, but at the Chestnut sewage pumping station, there's a plan to increase what we call the firm capacity of the duty pumps. So firm capacity is just a way of saying, you know, if one of the pumps is down for maintenance or an unforeseen issue, making sure there's still sufficient capacity to handle flows coming there. So in stage one, we'll be increasing that firm capacity of the duty pumps, close to doubling it actually. And then actually reducing the capacity of some peak pumps there. So don't want to get into the weeds too much on this, but if I can try to explain it simply, there's different pumps there of different capacity, some meant to handle more of the typical flows that go straight to the mechanical plant. And then if there's a really big flow event, you know, wet weather event, snow melt, rain, there are some peak pumps that would divert those flows to your storage lagoons until the flows in the system subside and the plant can handle taking contents from those lagoons. So we're adjusting the way that the pumps are set up a bit, adjusting the way that the force mains are set up to get that flow to the lagoons and to the mechanical plant. At the sewage pumping station itself, all of the existing pumps, even though they have capacity that's required, there's been changes in electrical code from the time that they were built, and really it's to do with making things explosion proof. It's a fire protection requirement. So that code's changed. We are placing those pumps with current models that meet code, but I think we'll be able to repurpose some of those existing pumps at the mechanical plant. And then also the generator, the standby power generator at the station will be replaced, taking it from a smaller indoor unit to a larger outdoor. Is it? Yeah.
So, not an engineer, but the 300 millimeter pipe, I'm just wondering why it's making those 90s at the top. Like, why is it not going straight across? Just a question. I don't, like I said, I don't know anything about these really, but
Nope, fair enough. In an ideal world, it wouldn't. It's to do with land ownership and easement. Yeah. Yeah. So we'll actually be changing the role that each of those force mains use. And one of them right now flows to the lagoon, and then the other to the plant, and we'll be reversing how that's done to get more capacity going to the mechanical plant and a bit of a decrease to the lagoons. But with the change in the pump setup, that allows for that. And then also as part of the kind of bigger picture here, right now you have those 2 lagoons used for that emergency storage. The eastern, slightly smaller cell will be converted to use for sludge storage. So the thicker kind of byproduct of the treatment plant that requires some storage before it can be taken off site and disposed of elsewhere. At the mechanical plant, there's not enough volume to handle all of that as needed. So we'll repurpose the lagoon for that. Going ahead and getting this is just focused now on the mechanical plant site itself. So there's an administration and kind of process building there towards the bottom of that photo. And existing grit removal, a couple of aeration tanks that are part of the biological process. And then towards the end of the treatment process, clarifiers and filters for polishing, and then UV disinfection. And then that sludge I mentioned, there's a digester to help stabilize it, break it down, really eliminate some of the bad bugs, if you want to call them that, in the process. So really keeping with the same process concept, but adding a new headworks building that would remove grit and some initial larger screenings at the start of the process. Adding in stage 1 a 3rd aeration tank and making provision for a 4th one in the future if needed. Adding a 3rd clarifier, and again making provision for a 4th in the future. Expanding the filter capacity by adding a new filter building, and then also expanding the sludge digestion capabilities. So stage 1 is the new headworks, flow splitter to the different aeration cells, aeration and clarifiers 3, the filter building, and the digester expansion. And then stage 2, when that time comes, would be the 4th aeration tank. There's a slight possibility that with some technology changes, we could maybe avoid that 4th aeration tank and keep it at 3, the 4th clarifier, and then within that 2nd filter building, adding more filters down in stage 2 if needed. So a fair bit of work to go at the site there.
Okay, Daniel, you have another question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So just one question about the UV. So with the increased volume, would you have to increase the size of the UV building and the amount of affluent that's going out, the amount that has to be treated before it leaves?
We've worked with Trojan, and Brock can probably give a bit more specifics than I can, but it'd be upgraded equipment, but able to retrofit it within the existing channel. Is that correct?
So
Yeah.
Sorry if I may, second. So that would handle any increased volume, because when you're looking at the increased, I don't know if you first page there, those volumes are coming out, and you're hoping to eventually get to 3,300 cubic meters a day. That would would handle it.
Yeah.
So that's down the road. I'm thinking a few years down the road here. So yeah.
Yeah, good question. With UV, there's the getting the flow through it, the channel that houses those bulbs, but
Right,
then
yeah.
the kind of the number of bulbs that you have
Okay.
to provide that treatment as well. So the hydraulics work out within that existing channel, but there is a need to expand the actual number of bulbs and capacity that it has there.
Okay, and we've been out there a number of times looking at all this in a different pollution control plant. So that was just one of the things that, okay, thank you very much. Thanks.
Moving ahead to the next slide. Really the most complicated part of the design is really the treatment process and making all of the hydraulics work. And what I mean by that is we want there to be, you know, as nice of a flow within the plant and minimize the number of pumps you have to have and complicate things. I mean, in a sense, there's lots of ways you could do it, but we want to do it as efficiently as possible, keep down the number of building structures. All those pumps have a purchase price, a maintenance price, but then operating for hydro. So trying to make all that work as best as possible in the most efficient way. So that's all about 80% complete right now, that design. We applied for an amendment to your environmental compliance approval with the ministry. That application was made in December. That application doesn't require a fully complete design in terms of, structure, electrical details. It's more just the process that the ministry cares about for that. So that's why that was possible to get that in. To Councillor Reagan's question about the UV, we've worked with Trojan, the manufacturer and supplier of that equipment, to pick out what the new equipment would look like there. One of the challenges that we've faced and had to work through, right now the plant's rated for 1,700 cubic meters per day. It was actually originally only designed for 1,100, and then a number of years ago it was successfully re-rated to that 1,700, which was good. But it provides a little bit of a challenge just hydraulically. We're trying to squeeze, in some cases, more flow through infrastructure that wasn't sized for it. It works for the UV channel, as I mentioned, but certain pipes and things like that, valves, there are some bottlenecks. So working through that, designing for a flow rate that's really 3 times what it was originally has been a bit of a challenge, but working through it, it does mean that a number of those process pipes along the way need to be replaced. Even the outfall to the Heenan drain will have to be upsized as part of that. I briefly alluded to it with the Chestnut station, but it applies to the plant here as well. Changes to electrical code have resulted in a need to upgrade some equipment, either replacing it or just relocating it to get away from some of those fire hazard classifications. Some of these challenges, a positive thing has been finding a way to switch operation of those force mains to repurpose them and minimize the amount of buried pipe requiring replacement there. And as mentioned, we'll be able to repurpose some of those existing Chestnut station pumps at the plant as well. Next slide. So next steps, as I mentioned, we're able to do enough of the process design to get that ministry application in to actually complete a design to a point where you could tender it and get ready to construct. Would require more of a final selection of what the filter equipment and some of the screening equipment would be. And what I mean by that is, even though we have an idea of how the process works and what it needs to do, there's different manufacturers and suppliers out there for screens, for filters, and they'll have a lot of the same performance, but how they achieve that in terms of, what's required for power, what's required for physical space, all that to make it fit, those things can vary. Even the size of pipe connecting this stuff sometimes can vary from one to another. And so to complete every detail of the process design, as well as the structural and electrical design, requires having that equipment really selected. We call it pre-selection, but choosing which manufacturer to work with. And that's a bit of a topic for maybe another time to explain the detailed process. It's a competitive process and all that to go through and select who is used, but that will be one of the next steps. Finishing that would then allow for the structural design, the electrical design, all the control systems and really finalizing that process design that's about 80% complete right now. Some of the equipment, pumps, aeration equipment is a little more standard. And so we can more or less wrap that up without knowing which manufacturer it'll be right now. So it varies a bit depending on which piece of equipment in particular we're dealing with. Next slide, a schedule to do all that. As mentioned, the application for approval was submitted in December. Current experience with the ministry has been anywhere from about 10 months to 12 months to have them review and issue the approval. There's typically a little bit of back and forth with them, just hammering out a few of the small details, but either side of a year to get that back from them. Can't go ahead and tender and build the new works without that approval in hand, but you are able to proceed to get tender ready. So the next steps with that would be complete that pre-selection that I mentioned for some of the critical, very specific equipment, complete structural electrical design, finish pre-selection for any of the other more standard equipment, the pumps, aeration equipment, and you could be in a position by this fall to have that all packaged up and ready to tender. And then if you chose to tender and have a tender awarded by the end of the year, you know, if that was the timing that you went with and you had either an end of 2024, early 25 tender, this type of project, even if you had it awarded by December, likely wouldn't be until sometime in spring that a contractor wants to break ground there and get going. And it'd probably be about a year process, construction process in total to get that built. That really concludes update that we have. Apologize if it was a whirlwind, but as mentioned before, more than happy to try to answer any questions that you might have.
Hey, thank you very much for that update, Andrew. That I think we've all been waiting for it. But before I open up for questions, I just had a question. So we have to get the approval before you can go to tender, but you can put everything in place so that when that approval comes, you can just put that out.
That's right. And it's a fairly common practice to do that. We've done it many times. In fact, there's probably been a couple of occasions where we have tendered before having the approval in hand if we sense that it's close, and we'll just have a note in the tender package that, you know, can't break ground until you get the ECA in hand. But the type of details, like I mentioned, there'd be some back and forth with the ministry. The type of details that there would be that back and forth on aren't the kind of things that would actually affect the tender package that's put out. So you're right. You can proceed to get ready even without the approval.
You mentioned, so the critical equipment, you did say that it was a competitive process. We don't need to go into all of that, but you can still go through that process to select that equipment, even though the approval hasn't happened.
That's right. And really, you try to put it into a nutshell. It's competitive. You get firm pricing out of suppliers.
Perfect.
And then it's often price based, but there's the odd time where someone advertises, you know, a piece of equipment that's 20% cheaper than someone else. But you look at the big picture of the project, and sure, it's a little bit cheaper to buy it, but it will cause other complications and costs. So we try to evaluate all of that, make a recommendation for what's in your best interest, and then base the rest of the design around those selections. One thing we ought to be sensitive with in a project like this is just sometimes those supplier, well, not sometimes, all the time, they'll have a validity period for their pricing and only hold it for so long.
Right.
With this type of project, just given the scale, we try to maximize what that validity period is, and make sure those kind of considerations are built into the process to make sure that, you know, 6 months down the road, it's not all of a sudden a whole lot more money.
Right. Yeah. Understood. Thank you. Any questions or comments from my colleagues? Councillor Regan?
I do. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just wondering, like, project's gonna take us far into the future, so I'm wondering with respect to structural and electrical design, has any thought been given to the design with alternative power sources? Or supplementary power sources?
Yeah, good question. I'm not aware that too much thought has been given to that kind of thing. We've been asked the question before, you know, in terms of standby power, for example, rather than just diesel's a conventional approach. Should we look at natural gas or other things like that? Again, it's maybe more detail than you want to get into the nitty-gritty of that
right.
tonight, but
No, I
it
understand.
conventionally the approach being planned here is a typical way most wastewater plants are done. We'd probably have to talk to our electrical consultant if they thought there'd be other practical considerations for that kind of thing here.
Okay, all right. Okay,
And we can put that question to them.
all right, I just thought it was a point I'd like to raise. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks, guys.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Hodgins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thanks for the presentation and update. Do we have an updated cost estimate as the engineering's been developed? Are we getting a more detailed cost estimate? Has it gone up since our last, what we've been told?
You got an idea on that one?
Like construction cost estimate or engineering?
Construction cost to build the new plant.
Yeah, I think we're at a decent point now that we can have that updated. The design has advanced far enough that we can have some sort of update for you guys in the near future.
Yeah, so possibly we must not have done one in very recent months, I guess. So yeah, it probably is time to update it and take a look at it for what this year would forecast.
And just to follow up, and this one, I'm not sure if it's to the consultant or to staff, but I guess how are we going to fund this project? Have we looked at done a financial analysis to see how it's going to be broken out, whether like between growth and non-growth portions? And are we going to have the capacity to fund this, or is there a potential that we're going to kind of hit a roadblock if we can't secure some external funding from senior levels of government?
Yeah, and through the mayor, we did discuss a very preliminary breakdown between DCs and what will cost the users of the system now, because there is a portion of this expansion that is benefiting the users that are in the system right now. So BM Ross has done that breakdown. And we can, when we go to update the cost, we can revisit that. I don't have that memo in front of me, but there is a breakdown there. And the majority of it is DCs, without a doubt, because the reason for this expansion is more capacity. But yeah, no, that is broken down, so we can get those numbers. For financing, I think that's one of the next steps that we'll have to look at once we start nailing down the exact costs going forward. And again, we've just talked a little bit, very preliminary, that there will have to be some sort of loan to pay for the whole thing, and then broke out over the years of how we pay for it.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just one last question. With this expanded facility, and I guess there's going to be more equipment and just a larger facility to operate, is there going to be a need for additional staff for our operating authority to operate this plant once it's upgraded, or could the current staff complement manage the new equipment?
It's a good question, and I wouldn't really want to speak on their behalf. Like, they'll have to see the plans as well. But my thought would be that the process isn't really greatly changing here. There's just more there, and with it being, I guess, newer and more modernized, the hope would be that things are just continuing to operate in a lot of ways the same way they have. There's just more capacity to it. So you know, each day they do their checks or each time they're doing maintenance on equipment, I guess there's a little bit more to look at there, but my hope would be that day to day, there wouldn't be a real significant increase.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, just, and this probably, well, I think it's a little. Oh, Jeff, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just
or-
wanted
Yep.
to follow up. One of the things that's going to happen, and we wanted to get this update in place now. And then come the 1st of February or February, I've already been in discussions with BM Ross about the equipment pre-selection. So there will be more information coming back to council right away about that process and what's going to go on there. And then that'll be I guess, approval by council to move forward with that next step. As we said, as Andrew pointed out in the slides, that's something they want to get completed by April. So council will be given that information in a report shortly. As well, there will be a report that also comes through on the capacity of the existing plant. So council will have an idea of what the plan is doing now, what we've got coming up, and what the expansion will give us. And because part of this is the timetable on how this all plays out. And I know that's on everybody on council's mind right now. So that will come again quite quickly in February. There'll be a follow-up report on capacity as well.
Okay, thank you for that, Jeff. So this question or comment, this might actually be better for that meeting. But the deputy mayor, who's not here tonight, did ask me to put it out there. So I will do that because I always do what he asked me to do. And it may not be, again, it may not be fair to you two either, but given that we've seen, you know, a slowdown in housing, which I think has helped us through this process, it necessarily we don't feel necessarily as much pressure that we might have had the growth continued as it was going. If there is a longer downturn and if housing doesn't jump back as quickly as we hope it will, you know, what would you recommend or how would you advise? And again, maybe this isn't for the two of you, but for us to mitigate, you know, the pressures on the expense that this project's going to put on us going ahead. And if we don't, if the housing doesn't come along with it as soon as those shovels go in the ground.
Yeah, it's definitely a reasonable question. And I wish I had a good enough crystal ball to give you a fully complete answer. The one comment I would make is that like by the time that this might actually be tendered is pretty close to a year from now. And so whether you decide to start building next year or 5 years from now, the design, the approval from the ministry, all of that would stay relevant. And so carry through with the design, carry through with the ministry approval. The ministry approval will have a 5-year window to build it before it would expire. And so after a year, I guess you'll have one more year of data. A year from now, you'll be able to check what flows and what growth and all that has been like. And a year from now, be able to make, I guess, even a better decision based on that data. The one, I'm not trying to steal too much thunder for that February meeting, but just one comment I want to make about that equipment selection and all that. Like I mentioned, this competitive process and fixed pricing. That the good news is that even though we go through that, you're not making a commitment to any of those manufacturers at that point in time to purchase their equipment. All of that ordering and payment is actually done through the general contract when that time comes. So even though we're trying to make a decision, you're not issuing a purchase order then that day for these pieces of equipment. So I just wanted to make sure that wasn't a concern that you had either.
Perfect. Thank you for that clarification. One last call for questions or comments. Nothing. Okay, well, thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us tonight. It was great to see you in person. And thanks for coming to Lucan tonight. Appreciate that. And with that, I would ask for a mover and a seconder to accept that report as presented for information. Councillor Westman and Councillor Regan, all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Yep,
a
we'll
good
see you
night.
soon. Yeah. Is Marianne? Okay, she's on. Okay. All right, our next delegation is Marianne Love is joining us tonight. And council will remember, she is the owner of ML Consulting and did our staff compensation review and has completed a compensation review for council. And so she'll be presenting that tonight. We'll just wait for her to get on. Lisa's just bringing her on now. There she is. Good evening, Marianne.
Hi there. Nice to
Thank you for joining us. If you are ready to go, I'll have Lisa pull it up and then I think she'll give you screen sharing control and then you can go through your presentation.
That's great. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
All right, thanks.
So I see the presentation that Lisa has up. I just don't know if I can share. I'm wondering if Lisa needs to scroll it. What do you think, Lisa?
Sorry, go ahead now and share, Marianne.
I thought you were going to put it up on screen, Lisa. I saw it. I'm fine if that's not it. If you did have it up. Then I'm fine if you want to scroll through it. That's okay. Is that okay? There we go. Okay. So I'm not sure, Madam Mayor, whether you want to do an introduction or if your CO does, or I can just start. What would you like me to do?
Ron, did you want to say anything?
Maybe just a quick comment. So this is the culmination of a council compensation review. We tend to do these on a semi-regular basis. I think one of the recommendations before council tonight is that we formalize that review, that it happens once per term of council. This being the second year of a 4-year term, seems rather timely to do it now. And so I don't think I need to say anything further. Marianne, I'll turn it over to you and you can go through or step through your report.
Okay, thanks very much. So, Madam Mayor, if you want to direct the traffic on your end, I'm happy to take questions as we go through, or I'll answer them at the end. I'll follow your lead.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, thanks so much. So in terms of background, the compensation for the elected officials at the township was last reviewed in 2019. The primary objective of this review is to conduct a review of the base pay and other elements of compensation for the mayor, deputy mayor, and councillor positions. And we were going to use the comparator group that was selected for the 2023 staff compensation review. I reviewed the municipal comparator information that was collected by Lucan Biddulph staff, and I prepared a base pay market summary. It's in this report. And that summary shows various percentile targets. And of course, these recommendations are brought forward this evening in this report for council's consideration. I'll take the next slide. Thank you. So this slide sets out the current pay practice. So in terms of the annual base pay rates, the mayor is $24,608, the deputy mayor $17,385, and the councillor $16,104. There are no additional meeting per diems provided, and this is significant. It just happens to be the way we pay we compensate at Lucan Biddulph. There are other organizations, and I'll get to this in a few minutes, that compensate a little differently. In other words, they use base pay plus. Okay. The per diems of $327.54 per day are paid for attendance at conferences and workshops. And there's a half-day rate that's 50% of that value. Meal expense is reimbursed with supporting receipts. The kilometerage expense is reimbursed at current CRA rates. Those current rates are 68 cents per kilometer for the first 5,000 kilometers. And the kilometerage reimbursement excludes the travel to council meetings, community meetings, community events. The laptop and or tablet is provided. The mayor and deputy mayor receive compensation for cell phone use. That's $50 per month. Internet services provided. There are no health, dental, and dental benefits provided. There is no owner's participation or provision of RSD. Base pay and committee conference per diems are adjusted annually, January 1st of each year, with the same economic adjustment that's provided to employees. I'll take the next slide, Lisa. By way of summary, the base pay rates is as follows. I won't read them out. They're as stated on the previous slide. The remuneration, the base pay remuneration for all of our positions at Lucan Biddulph is low as compared to the defined pay market when I'm looking at the 55th percentile target. The per diem rate for conference attendance is above the competitive pay market. Other elements of remuneration are generally comparable. We'll take the next slide. And this slide now gets into a little bit around the methodology and the source data that was collected. The comparator group was selected having regard to the comparator group that was used in the 2023 staff compensation study. We have 13 comparators identified. They are Thames Centre, Adelaide Metcalfe, Southwest Middlesex, Middlesex Centre, North Middlesex, Strathroy Caradoc. Those are within the confines of the county. And extending beyond, we have Clinton, Wyoming, Blandford, Glenham, North Huron, Asheville, Colbert, Wabanosh, Grey Highlands, Erin, and West Grey. The group was selected having regard to historic comparators, geographic location, those that are similar in terms of service alignment, providing like services, and of course having regard to some metrics of size. Lucan Biddulph is relatively placed within the comparator group, having regard to size indicators. We'll go to the next slide. So here are some observations regarding base pay. The base pay compensation for all positions was reviewed and compared to the defined pay market. And of course, the work was done in 2023, so we're using 2023 base pay rates. For the majority of comparators, base pay compensates for council meetings, committee meetings, and special meetings of council, as does the base pay for the Lucan Biddulph positions. However, 5 of our comparators report that there are additional per diems for attendance at public meetings to supplement base pay rates. And what this results in is a relatively low base pay rate for many of these comparators as compared to other municipalities within the group, because they compensate differently. So it's base pay plus. So having regard to these different methods of payment, it was then determined to move to 8 of the identified comparators that compensate in the same manner. So we're comparing apples to apples. Those 8 are listed at the bottom of the slide: North Middlesex, Blandford, Glenham, Erin, West Grey, Thames Centre, Adelaide Metcalfe, Middlesex Centre, Strathroy Caradoc. Here are the market observations in relation to the base pay. And you can see in this chart, just going to the left, you can see our positions are identified in the first column. Our 2023 base pay rates are in the next column. And then over to the right is the roll up of the market comparisons. You can see for the mayor and the councillors, we have 8 matches. So 8 of our comparators have, of course, mayor and councillor, but only 5 of the 8 have a deputy mayor. And that's why you see 5 observations showing with deputy mayor. As you're moving across, you'll see a peach highlight on the market P55 column. This is the percentile target that was approved by council for staff. It is common practice in the sector that once we select a base pay rate for staff, or a percentile target for staff, it's reasonable to bring the same per target over to council positions for comparison purposes. When we look at the market summary for each one of those positions, you can see that the mayor 55th percentile target amongst a group of 8 comparators is $33,036. The deputy mayor amongst 5 comparators, when we look at that, the 55th percentile is $27,636. And the councillor position, having regard to 8 comparators, the 55th percentile target is $20,730. The 2019 compensation review established base pay rates at the 50th percentile of the defined pay market. And as I said earlier, that's now being adjusted for staff, moving to the 55th percentile target in the 2023 compensation review. And as Ron said, this review is on the sort of on the tail of that review. So it would make sense that the 55th target be used here. The 55th target percentile target is the dollar rate, where 55% of the wage rates in comparator organizations are below this amount at 45% or above. The base pay rates for the mayor, deputy mayor, and councillors are all below the target, as you can see on the previous slide. And the market comparison, the market comparison results, if we want to sort of just break them down a little bit further, we can see that for the mayor, amongst the group of 8 comparators, the pay rates range for mayor from $22,396 to $55,450. So again, by way of example, you can see that we're not going to the highest, we're not at the lowest, we're just a little bit above the midpoint. Likewise, for the deputy mayor, the pay rates range from $19,232 to $29,649. Again, targeting just a little bit above midpoint. And for councillor, amongst the comparator group, the pay rates range from $14,731 to $21,416. Okay. Now I'm going to get into some of the other elements of compensation or remuneration. Based on the information that was provided, it would appear that 2 of the comparators, and this is amongst the whole, 2 of the 13 report that they provide extended health, dental, and life insurance. 1 of the 13 states that it provides onerous contributions for the mayor only and the RSP contribution for councillors. 5 of the comparators report that technology is provided. 8 of the comparators reporting that base pay rates are adjusted annually by an economic adjustment as provided to staff with union positions. 6 comparators are reporting that there is a limit on conference attendance for budget application, which is typically normal course. 6 comparators are reporting a daily per diem payment for conference attendance that ranges from, and amongst the 6, the daily per diem rate ranges from $171.62 to $253.08. So you can see our daily rate per diem is high. It's above the range. 4 of our comparators are reporting that a meal allowance is provided, and 3 provide $75 a day. 1 reports $100 a day, and 3 are reporting that meals are reimbursed with receipts. So you can benchmark or compare our pay practice to what you're seeing on screen, and you can see we're generally comparable with on the high side with regards to the daily per diem for conference attendance. By way of conclusion, I think that the comparator group is representative based on select criteria aligned with the comparator group to the employee group. The subset that we've used for this analysis has been selected based on them using the same approach to establishing base pay rates, and this provides a more reliable comparative data set for analysis. The 55th percentile pay target is reasonable based on size, scope, and pay practice of the comparator group. It aligns nicely with our employee group. The base pay rates for mayor, deputy mayor, and councillor require an increase to meet the 55th percentile pay target. The daily per diem rate for conference attendance is highest amongst the comparator group. So I'm not certainly suggesting an adjustment there. Provision of health, dental, and dental benefits and owners' participation are not prevalent amongst the comparator group. However, I would say across the province, it is evolving to a practice that some councils are sort of adopting. So it's something to keep our eye on, I think, in future reviews. It is best practice in the province to increase the annual base pay for our elected official positions by the same amount used to adjust the employee salary grid. And this is what we're doing as well. This allows for a year-over-year increase to align with cost of living increases, again, supported by the survey results. It's also best practice to review compensation at least once during the term of council using a survey of comparative municipalities. So in terms of recommendations, I'm recommending that council give consideration to implementing the following base pay adjustments effective January 1 of this year, plus an economic adjustment. And the reason being, again, these are 2023 rates, and we know the practice of our comparators is to adjust the compensation annually, as has been our practice. And so therefore we need to bring these rates into 2024 with the same economic adjustment that's been provided to staff. It's also recommended that council continue the practice of adjusting base pay for elected official positions by using the percentage adjustment provided for the employee salary grid. It's recommended also that the per diem conference rate not be adjusted annually until it comes in line with the comparator pay practice. In terms of the review period, it's recommended that a compensation review be conducted once every 4 years using a consultant and comparator survey data, just as you folks have done in this review. The next review being the next term of council. And in terms of future considerations, as I mentioned earlier, council may wish to consider introducing, either health and dental benefits or a healthcare spending account. And in terms of retirement benefits, either participation or RSP contributions. And these are some things that council may wish to consider, perhaps during the term of council as you're leaving, as we're finishing off the term and moving into the next term of council. You may wish to consider it then, or it could be moved forward fully for the next compensation review and bring it up at that point. That's really council's decision. And I believe that's it.
Okay, I believe that is the last slide. So thank you very much for that, Marianne. It was a great overview. Certainly appreciate the work that you put into putting all of this together and then deciphering it and presenting it in a way that we can all understand the data. So thank you very much for that. Questions or comments on Marianne's report? Any clarifications that council might have? Councillor Hodgins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Marianne, for the presentation. My question is just looking at the 7th slide when it shows the market summary. I just wanted to ask, like, it looks like the deputy mayor position is kind of much, I guess, further behind than the others. So I just wanted to I thought that was an interesting observation to see how it's kind of dramatically further behind than the other positions. Do you have any comments or as to how it got there, since we would have done a review 4 years ago?
Well, I through you, Mayor, I think my comments are, I think there's 2 reasons. First of all, we went out and we were matching obviously the same positions. We may have, and Ron could probably better attest to this, I'm not sure if it's fully the same set of comparators. I think it's pretty darn close in terms of what we were looking at in 2019. So it may not be driven by the comparators themselves, but I fully expect, and some of them I know, have done their own market reviews since 2019. So as the comparators are doing their own reviews, their data presents differently. So I think that's predominantly the reason why that is. So this is sort of underscores why it is we want to go out every 3 to 4 years and do a bit of a reset, just seeing what the pay market's looking like, and bring that in and make a decision.
Okay, thank you for that. And just one other question. Could you explain how a healthcare spending account works?
Well, there are a number of variables to that, but generally speaking, it's an amount of money that would be allocated to the elected official to use for healthcare purposes. And it would typically they're self-administered by the organization, and it's theirs to use, and sometimes it's drawn on almost as an account. So monies are provided on proof of receipt. In other situations, it's just an allowance, and a bulk allowance that's provided. So there's a number of ways to administer a healthcare spending account. And it does provide a fair amount of flexibility to the user, as long as it's,
I was just going to add, if I can, Madam Mayor, the current healthcare spending account that's set up for the employees under the benefit program. It's based on a $500 dollar amount per year. You can accumulate up to 2 years. So the maximum amount in an employee's healthcare spending account will be $1,000. So it covers anything that the regular health and dental doesn't cover. So for example, when we go to a dentist, if your bill is $110, we usually get $100 worth of coverage. Well, if you have nothing else, you can accumulate or collect that $10 and submit that under the healthcare spending account. Or, if you have a really bad back and you go over the $500 per year limit for massage, for example, you can use the healthcare spending account to use it for that. So it's very flexible, but there is a fixed dollar amount that you can't go over.
Thank you, Marion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from council at this time? Councillor Regan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much, Marianne. So I guess it might have been along the same lines as Councillor Hodgins' question, but just about the differences in the percentages. And I'm just wondering, when we did this in 2019, I'm just wondering if did we make the right adjustment, or have other comparators had other reviews and like in between? The gap just seems to be rather large. Like just to sort of to play catch up, I guess, if that's the right word. So I'm just wondering if that, and the other thing I was wondering too, is that when you look at comparators, does it also look at, say, for example, what the role that a counselor has, a number of committees that they were on, that sort of thing, because the job has become a little bit more, I would have to say a little bit more demanding over the last 4 or 5 years for sure, because we've gotten bigger, and they're not complaining about it, by the way, but I'm not. It's just that it hasn't. I'm just wondering if that was part of the comparator, because the differences seem to be rather large when you're looking at, like 28% or 6 or 59%. I'm just wondering why that would happen. And again, it might have been along the same lines as what Councillor Hodgins was asking.
Through you, Madam Mayor, yeah, I really think, well, again, I can provide it maybe a different lens to it, along the same line as the answer to the previous or the question is previously posed. One of the other sort of changes in this review as compared to the last review is we were only targeting the 50th percentile, the pay market. Here we've raised the percentile target, which means we have a greater gap. Now, having said that, if you look at the 50th percentile on that summary chart on slide 7, you still see a gap. But as you're moving your target, you're going to see a larger gap between yourselves and the comparative group. And as I was mentioning earlier, no doubt these other folks, many of these organizations have done their reviews. In terms of the level of effort, if you will, and responsibility amongst the elected officials, it is very, very difficult to compare, one municipality to another. I mean, you can get a sense maybe in terms of number of meetings, etc. But even within a council itself, there's a different level of effort as you look at different councillors across the room. So we don't really go there. We don't go there. The measure of the effort is typically, tested through the election process. Right? So it's different than in the not in the compensation space that we were working in previously when I last met with you folks. And we were looking at, the value of a position within the employee group, and we run through job evaluation. It's just a different lens. We're able to do it and figure out what it means to Lucan Biddulph from an employment standpoint. Very difficult to do it from an elected official standpoint.
Right. Thank you very much.
I would say your level of effort and the fact that I can attest this from all the years I've been had the privilege of working with your municipality over the years. It's a different level of effort today than it was in the early 2000s. I've been, indirectly engaged in that. I think that then supports from an official standpoint, moving to a higher target. So you can recognize it that way.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Westman.
Yeah, I mean, as the old guy, I've been around for a while, and my tenure began back in 2006, and the level, like what we did, has changed greatly. There's more committee involvement, there's more boards, and there's more things to do. And with the growth in the community, there's a lot more community engagement. There's we can all say that we're contacted by ratepayers a lot more. There's a lot more going on in what we're doing for our ratepayers, and I think that we've fallen behind because we were working on the old, as incremental increases as we go along, with a certain amount of reluctance to increase our pay, because we didn't want to seem like we were grabbing money. But with the growth in the community and with all the extra work that we're doing, I think it's not unreasonable to look around and see what our neighbors and similar communities are doing to compensate their elected officials and meet that same level. I mean, it's not unreasonable to get paid for what we do. So, just want to make sure that's on the table. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, Councillor Westman. Certainly, it's always a difficult discussion when elected officials have to make this decision. But I think that it's probably a discussion best started when we enter into our budget discussions, and then we can have a fulsome discussion there. And then, of course, when the budget's presented, there'll be opportunity for comment. But certainly, Marianne, I appreciate your comments and your observations, because you've had a relationship with this community for a long time. So certainly appreciate that. And as I say, to repeat myself, the work that you put in to putting these analysis together and then making it understandable for us and for our ratepayers is something that we appreciate. So thanks for your work, and we certainly look forward to continuing to work with you.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. And with that, if that's the end of the questions, I will sign off and wish you a good rest of the meeting. And thanks for the opportunity.
Great. Thanks. Yeah. Good night. So with that, I would ask for a mover and a seconder to receive that council compensation review for information. Councillor Hodgins and Councillor Regan. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay. Moving on to the minutes, we have 3 sets of minutes in front of us. We have our regular council meeting minutes for January 2nd and our closed session minutes for November 7th and January 2nd. Those have just been circulated. I think you've had the opportunity to have a look at them. If nothing has to be amended, I would ask for a mover and a seconder to approve those 3 sets of minutes as circulated. Councillor Westman and Councillor Hodgins. All in favor? And that's carried. On to business arising. Nothing's been added. And I guess I'd be looking to council for if anything wants to be added, given the last set of minutes that we approved. Okay. On to correspondence. There was a letter that we received from AORs, and I think is Jeff, are you going to speak to this letter? Or from AORs, this is they're looking for support for the potential municipal equipment operator course. Did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I can, Madam Mayor. So this last year, AORs has been looking into how do we get to improve to draw people into this profession that we call public works. And out of that work over the last year, they put a program together to reach out to college, even high school information sessions and that sort of thing. And one of the plans is to secure funding to promote this program or to extend this program into the college area. So it's one of those things that over the past year we've been hearing information about, and I think it's a really great activity because we're all starting to I don't want to say fight over employees, but we want to reach out to the young people coming up and know that public works truly is a profession. And it's not just a last minute thought and that sort of thing. And there is a lot of job fairs and stuff out there to try to get this to compete with the different professions. So I really truly believe that going forward, that's going to be one of our main concerns is how do we draw good employees into this profession. So yeah, I'm fully in favor of this program.
Okay, thank you very much. So there's quite a lengthy motion that's attached to the letter. I didn't know if council had any comment to make on the letter or anything. But there's quite a lengthy motion in there. And what Tina has done, she hasn't, what she's done is the motion in front of us is that the letter from the Association of Ontario Road Supervisors dated January 8th, 2024 be received, and that council endorses the request for the province to fully fund the municipal equipment operator course, and that a copy of that motion and endorsement be sent to the Minister of Labor, Training, Immigration and Skilled Trades, David Piccini, as well as Lucan Biddulph's Member of Provincial Parliament, Rob Flack, and the Association of Ontario Road Supervisors. So I would ask for a mover and a seconder for that. So Councillor Regan and Councillor Westman, is there any discussion on that? All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. The other communication that was pulled is the annual request for private application for mosquito larviciding permits. I don't think I need to go into any sort of explanation. We see that on a yearly basis. So with that, unless council had any question or comment, I would ask for a mover and a seconder for the motion in front of you. Councillor Hodgins and Councillor Westman. All in favor? And that's carried. Did council have any comment on the rest of the items of correspondence there? Councillor Hodgins.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yeah, just for my colleagues' attention, there's the ABCA inventory of programs and services. So it's a pretty lengthy document that basically lays out all the different services that the ABCA provides. So it's a good little reference document for council to look at if you're so interested. And I believe this is a requirement of some of the new regulations that are coming out. So just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Thank you for that. I thought it was a really helpful document, actually. Really good. With that, I would ask for a mover and a seconder to receive those items of correspondence for information. Councillor Regan and Councillor Hodgins, all in favor? Carried. On to committee reports, nothing from Blue Water, nothing, anything from CEDC, nothing from Lake Huron, no fire boards, ABCA. I will comment though, at ABCA got some great media attention last week about the million trees, and there was a great story on Channel 10 with the Van Rays, and that was yeah, really good news story there. Anything from Parks and Recreation? Okay, on to staff reports. Ron, you don't have anything verbal or anything? Okay, Tina.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, and to members of council. There is a report included in within just regarding the Upper Thames Conservation Authority cost apportionment agreement. You will recall that in December, Tracy Annette from Upper Thames and Tom Heeman, our joint board representative, attended to present a guide to the agreement, as well as the agreement itself, and reviewed that with council members at that time. Discussion followed, and there has been no changes made to that agreement since it was presented. It's pretty much a replica of an agreement that we executed earlier last year with the Sauble Bayfield River Conservation Authority. And this agreement does have the impact to our budget included within, so that we're aware of what our portion will be. And other than that, there's nothing to add from when it was presented in December.
Thank you very much for that, Tina. Any questions on that? Okay, you have a recommended motion in front of you, and I would ask for a mover and a seconder for that one, please. Councillor Westman and Councillor Regan, all in favor? And that's carried. Do you have anything else? No,
No, I don't. Thank you.
Finance, Catherine.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before I go to my report, on the business arising, there was one item that hadn't required an update for this meeting on the cost analysis for Parks and Rec. So I just thought if I could give a verbal on that. So at our December meeting, when we talked about the fees by law, we were asked if there was some kind of rates or study part of the Monteith Brown's work with the Parks and Rec master plan update. And I reached out to them, and it's not part of that update they're working on now. But if we wanted to do a rates and fees study or pricing policy, and in the past, they've done work on that, and it costs between $30,000 to $50,000, depending on how in depth it goes. So I just wanted to provide that update as a cost of doing that kind of a study.
Okay, thank you for that. I think again, that would be further discussion. Probably we can start a discussion at budget time on that.
Okay. I'll add that to that and segue into my report. I have the activity report there. I'm only going to touch on, I want to mention the 2024 budget and where we are with that. We do have a finance committee meeting scheduled for next week, Thursday, January 25th at 10 a.m. to start. And then we've also kept the next day, January 26th, should we need it. Only the members of the finance committee are required to attend. And according to the approved appointment bylaw in December for this year, it's the mayor and deputy mayor. Will sit on that committee along with the members of staff. However, the public is welcome to join in person to listen. However, all members of council are expected to go through the draft budget information and submit any questions, comments to members of the committee, either through the mayor, deputy mayor, or through members of staff ahead of that meeting, so that we can have a good discussion on that and keep the big topics and highlights when we meet as full council. So I anticipate having that data available to you later this week. I was hoping for today, but if you wasn't to be, so hopefully by Thursday I will have that information emailed out. It will become part of the agenda through eScribe, and also I will be doing a printed copy. I'll have a budget binder available for each of you, but I'll indicate that in my email to you. So please watch for that, and I hope it's has a lot of good information in there for you, but don't be afraid to read it through and ask questions ahead of the January 25th committee meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Catherine, I do appreciate that update. And then you'll see in her report a couple of other items that she's highlighted. Any questions or comments for Catherine on that? Okay, then I would ask for a mover and a seconder to receive that report for information, please. Councillor Regan and Councillor Hodgins. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. No planning, any thing verbal? Jeff? Nope. Parks and Recreation, Ron.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the report before council tonight is a bit of an update. It was previously brought, I believe, the first meeting in December. It's in regards to the Granton Centennial Ballpark diamond lights. So there was a few questions that came up at that meeting, so we dug into the situation a little bit more in depth. And as a result, it came to light that the actual tender that was submitted or that was put out, item number 4 under the scope of work says concrete poles shall come with a standard lifetime warranty. It's also mentioned under part 11. It says manufacturer to supply a minimum of a 10-year warranty on fixtures and cross arms, as well as a lifetime warranty on the pole structure. So it not only mentioned it in one spot, it actually mentioned it in 2 spots. Of the 2 tender submissions, only one carried the lifetime warranty, and that was Southwold Diversified Limited. So really the other tender should have been disqualified from the get-go. I did speak to the procurement officer at the county, Mr. Jay White, and he basically confirmed that council has 2 options. We can disqualify the Clark multi-trade submission, or we can start over. The problem with starting the process over is an issue of fairness to the other party. Obviously, they did everything right. They submitted the proper submission, and their price is now in the public realm. So it's an issue of fairness as well. So for those reasons, I am recommending that council award the tender to the only valid submitted tender, which was Southwold Diversified, for the supply and installation of replacement ball diamond lights at the Granton Centennial Park as per their submission dated November 7th, 2023.
Okay, thank you, Ron. Questions or comments? Councillor Westman?
Yeah, I have to agree on this. I do realize it exceeds our budgeted amount, but it's not by a lot. So, you know, we've had issues, and we want to make sure that going forward we don't have quality issues or equipment failure. This has been a long time coming, and I really like to see it done right. And you know, this has been kind of something I've been pounding the table on for quite a while, and I really want to make sure that we do it correctly. And having read through some of the submissions there, this is, I don't even know why we considered the other at all. I think this is a no-brainer. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Westman. Any other questions or comments from council? Councillor Hodgins?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. And this is just related to this report, but also just referring back to the business arising, because we do have an item on there just about procurement. I'm just wondering if I can just maybe, because it's related to this one, just wondering, I guess, what that procurement discussion is going to be in the future. Is it just looking at our overall procurement policy that we have in place, or what can we expect?
So through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Hodgins, the plan is to get a report together to present to council, and that is going to happen hopefully in April. I'm looking at April or May, hopefully. And what we want to do is try and standardize our procurement policies with other municipalities across the county. The original plan at the county level was to get a supervisor, which they do have in place, as Mr. White is the supervisor, but sort of phase 2 to that was to get another person in there that could then help some of the lower municipalities with our procurement needs. So that, unfortunately, that was took a fatal blow at council budget discussions at the county level last year. I don't know if it's going to make it through this year's budget deliberations as well, but that would greatly enhance our ability to do the things we'd like to do. So on a go forward basis, that's what we're looking at. We're hoping to get that before council, before the summer.
Thank you.
Any other questions, discussions on the ball lights? Thank you very much for that, Ron. It's unfortunate the way it all played out. But this is where we are today. Okay, if I can get a mover and a seconder for the motion in front of us, and just to refresh you, it's that council authorizes staff to accept the tender from Southwell Diversified for the supply and installation of replacement ball diamond lights, the Granton Centennial Park, as per their submission dated November 7th, 2023. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Westman and Councillor Regan. All in favor? And that's carried. Anything from economic development? Nothing. Councillor comments. Councillor Regan.
Madam Mayor, thank you. I just have two really quick ones. One, just as on behalf of the Parks and Rec Committee being the chair, I just want to thank everybody for filling out the Parks and Rec Master Plan Survey. We were at the community center a while ago. We had some things set up at the library. I understand the turnout was pretty good. And then I think it just closed, I think on the 14th. So just again, thanks to everyone who had who completed that for us. Give us an idea moving forward for our Parks and Rec programs. The other thing, just an aside, just with the weather we've had lately, and I just noticed something. My community is just, or in my area of town, is just the with people that are gets a lot of the snow, getting snowed in, aging population. I know it happened once or twice on my street. There's nothing wrong with, perhaps if you haven't seen somebody around in a day or two, perhaps a wellness check. I know we had a lady that was having trouble getting out of the house and had some mobility issues, and our neighbor went over and checked out, and it was a good thing they did. They just went out and got groceries and stuff. And I just thought it was just sense of community, and just to remind people, you're not being nosy, you're being helpful. So again, just there's nothing wrong with just saying, are you okay? Is there anything you need? And I just wanted to pass that on, just being the community that we are. Thank you.
Thank you. Just jumping off that, just a reminder to everybody that during these cold snaps, the library is a great place to go and get warmed up and socialize, and they'll help you there. Any other councillor comments? I had a question for Ron. I should maybe done this during our staff reports, but today at County Council, we had a presentation with regards to the OPP board update. We all know that that we're supposed to have a detachment board in place for April 1st, or things have to start moving. We have to at least have our appointments for April 1st. So we had a presentation with Lisa Darling and Jim Maudsley. And I just wondered, number one, I think that our clerk at the county level is going to be sending that report out. But in the event that you want to look at that before it gets sent out, it is on the county council agenda. It's item 9.A.1. But I just wondered, Ron, where things were with the formation. April 1st is a little over than 60 days away. So.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This issue has come up over the past probably 3-4 CAO meetings. So it is being spearheaded by the CAO in Middlesex Center, Michael DeLulo. He's been very active in moving this forward. So just a bit of background. At the present time, we are what they call a non-contract municipality. So we don't require a police services board, and we don't have one. At the present time, there's only 2 police services boards in the county of Middlesex. One is with Thames Center. They are under contract. They have signed a contract with the OPP. The other one is Strathroy Caradoc Police, and as their own police service, they have their own police services board. So there are 2 at present time. So we actually started working on this a number of years ago. It got held up with COVID. It's substantially slowed things down. Obviously, with the April 1st deadline approaching, things are going to have to speed up. It is quite a bit of a head scratcher to me. I don't understand why the province is pushing us in this direction. I struggle to see the benefit to the average taxpayer. I'll maybe just put it out there bluntly. There's going to be a big cost to this, and there's going to be limited input shall we say, from municipal representative, because it is going to be it's supposed to be a 7-member board. And 4 are municipal council members. Or municipal council representatives, I should say. It doesn't necessarily have to be a member of council. However, those 4 representatives are going to come from all the municipalities involved. So that's Thames Center, that's Middlesex Center, that's North Middlesex, Lucan Biddulph, Southwest Middlesex, Adelaide, Metcalfe. So there's a number of municipalities. Not every municipal council is going to have a representative on the board. So that's one thing that we have to sort of wrap our head around. And then not only that, there's also provincial appointees, and then the public appointees as well. So 3. Yeah. So it's not going to be simple. It's not going to be cheap because there's mandatory training requirements that have to take place. There's obviously some administration that has to happen. I think at this point, Middlesex Center looks like they're willing to take it on, which God bless them for doing that, because that's going to be another hat to wear. So I'm hoping that our next CAO meeting, we're gonna more or less formalize what our next steps are, and we can have a formal report, sort of an information report before council, sometime probably the 2nd meeting in February.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you for that update. Last call for council comments. Okay, then we'll move on to motions and accounts. Under accounts paid, motion in front of us is that the Council of the Township of Lucan Biddulph receive the attached accounts as paid for information. December 2023, $2,094,244.11. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Regan, Councillor Hodgins, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Council authorizes Tina Murner to enroll in level 2 of the Municipal Clerks Institute program through AMCTO at a cost of $1,235 plus HST. A mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Westman, Councillor Regan, all in favor, and that's carried. Council of the Township of Lucan Biddulph authorized Kathy Burkhart-Jessen, Dave Manders, Daniel Regan, and Ron Raymer to attend the AMO conference in Ottawa, Ontario on August 17th to 21st at the registration cost of $860 plus HST each. Councillor Hodgins and Councillor Westman, all in favor, and that's carried. Oh, sorry, we have 2 bylaws in front of us. Bylaw 04-2024 to authorize the execution of an agreement between the Township of Lucan Biddulph and the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, and bylaw 05-2024, the confirming bylaw. So if no one cares to speak to bylaw 04-2024, don't put us ahead. It's not 2024. Inclusive on their first, second, and third reading, that they be considered to have been read a first time and passed, read a second time and passed, and read a third time and passed. A mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Regan and Councillor Hodgins, all in favor? Carried, thank you. And resolved that the council meeting be adjourned at 7:37 p.m. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Westman and Councillor Regan, all in favor? That's carried.